Here we are again. It's Wednesday. We're here for our WorkLife Wednesday netcast.
Yes, we are.
To the content shortly. We're Dave and Laura Butler, and we'll be right back.
Hello.
Hi there. How are things on this in Columbus, Ohio, rainy Wednesday?
Pretty good. Got our son living here close by, and actually got a chance to work out with him this morning. And we're moving ahead with some of our ideas. I can't wait to start doing some of those things.
Yeah, so we are, as I said, the opening, and thank you for those who are live, and thank you for those who are listening on the replay. We're Dave and Laura Butler of WorkLife Consulting, and we provide customized online coaching programs that help individuals, teams, and leaders achieve greater fulfillment in their lives. Our services are tailored to fit the unique needs of the individual for coaching, for teams, for organizations with virtual workshops and keynote content. And today we're going to be talking about one of Dave's favorite topics, which is forget about it.
Forget about it.
But what we mean by that is that we are going to be ready, help you be ready for all of the unknowns out there. It's such a, as I've said before, it's 2021 is 2020 with bangs. Hasn't changed that much. Right.
No, it hasn't. And there's an awful lot coming our way. I think that, I can just see business starting to roar back, and all of the clients that we have that I've been talking to are anticipating more work and more talent and more opportunities. And it's just, I think everybody's so happy to be back out there again. There's going to be a lot of positive energy, I think, in the workplace.
Well, I think it's going to be a hybrid. We're not going back to any sort of what everybody thought is normal. It's going to be a new, we've heard it, ad nauseum, but a new normal. But I don't think it really has sunk in 100%. So I love when we talk about change and transition. We always start off with the thinking around what the Chinese symbol for change could be seen as. It's two different things. We can either see the crisis or the change or what's going on that's different as a major crisis, or we could look and see what are the opportunities.
There's always one there.
There is always one there. And I love how, when our Tuesday tips yesterday, everything was a list, and we'll get to it shortly, of forget about ... So it was so perfect. It wasn't Hugh Grant and the movie where he tries to be the gangster guy and he goes, forget about it, trying to a totally different accent. But it's so true. We have to put aside what we think is the way to go about it and start to really dive into the approach that we need to take.
When I started working on writing the tips, I realized that what was really standing out for me is the fact that we must put aside some of the stuff that we're carrying with us from before COVID, BC, I like to call it, the world BC, because the world that we're coming back into, we don't need a lot of it. So it's better for us to set it aside, let it go, and find some new ways to do it. Hence, the forget about it.
Well, it's about being ready. And we've talked about being ready with various workshops we've done around change over the years. But this is a real need for being ready. And I love how you started the tips with Hamlet. The readiness is all.
Yeah. In the end, that's the only thing you can really do is be as ready as possible.
And that means different things for different people, because we're going to go through 5 tips on forget about it tips. Because everything is unique to the individual. There is no one size fits all, now so more than ever. So the first tip, this is a biggie.
Forget about perfection. The days of perfectionism are over. Trying to get everything to be exactly right. By the time you get it right, it's already changed anyway. So the thing is better is to try and find what works, what fits the moment, being able to make it something that's good enough to get the job done. But perfection, forget about it.
Well, you go to, I think when it comes to this topic, looking at, what are the competencies that are necessary, and perfection is not one of them. Striving to be perfect.
I've never seen that in a job description. Perfection required.
Looking for perfection. Who's out there? Zero. I hope. If that's the case, then we're all robots. But the skills and competencies needed for the future and where we're at right now, if agility isn't one, you better be able to flex. So that does not include perfection. You have to be adaptable because we don't know what we don't know yet.
Well, what's that song? It's a John Legend song, isn't it? Perfect imperfections?
Yeah.
Perfectly imperfect?
Perfectly imperfect. And, to be able to be resilient. I think that's the other piece, along with innovation. So none of those imply perfection. And so the ability to be fluid and roll with the change, and also to be able to identify what the transition is. That's what is overlooked quite often. Change happens, but we don't address the transition for everybody.
No, maybe it's just me, but I don't even think I know what perfection looks like. And I wouldn't even know what to look for.
No, it doesn't occur. Not in human beings. I mean, it could be, I think if one thing, it's nature. Sometimes it's in the eyes of the beholder. What I see as perfect in nature may not be the same for somebody else.
Well, even nature changes. You see a plant grow around a fence. How it goes weaves in and outside the fence. It's always going to adapt. It's always going to be right for the moment, but it's not necessarily a perfect flower.
Forget about it. Tip 2 is to forget about what other people think of you.
Yeah.
And I think this one really addresses the importance of being true to your values.
Yeah, that's right. Be who you are. Don't stop trying to be something you're not.
Yeah. And the values provide I always say they're the internal compass. Mm-hmm. So when we feel like that compass is going in a direction that isn't serving us, and we correct, we adjust.
Well, I think that the point I wanted to make with this, forget about what others think of you, is that very few people are actually thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're thinking about their own problems. They're thinking about their own jobs. People haven't got all that much time to think about you.
They're all wrapped up in their own. Yeah. So we're WorkLife Consulting, Laura and Dave Butler, for those of you who are joining us a little late, or for those of you who are listening to the replay. And what the conversation is around being ready with a forget about it mindset. Mm-hmm. And so to be ready for the future. And so what we'd love to know is, situations where maybe you've shifted your mindset and to be ready for this approach, whatever the new approach may have been. And just share and comment and jump in. We'd love to hear that.
Add to the list.
Yes.
This is my favorite.
Yeah, go with this one.
Forget about nose to the grindstone. There's that feeling. I've heard it so many times over the years. You got to keep your nose close to the grindstone. You've got to be, right in there, bearing in on everything. Well, it's too much control. You can't control things that much. You need to be able to open yourself up. Now, I do have a little side story, nose on the grindstone. Do you know where the phrase comes from? In the old days, when they used to have those big old grindstones that would be turned by the water wheel, they would grind the corn into flour. The way that the miller, the only way they had to tell when things were right is if they got their nose to the grindstone close enough, they could smell it when it started to burn. So keep your nose close to the grindstone so you can tell that the grain is burning. We don't need it anymore. Forget about it.
Well, it's so funny. It reminds me of something we've talked about a lot is your writing is like chicken scratch. I mean, who looks at that anymore? Meaning it.
Most kids, when we had the farm and we used to do the farm program, most kids didn't know what you meant by chicken scratch. Yeah.
So if you've ever seen a chicken scratch, it's all over the place. So it's kind of like what we talk about with it's all these terms that are no longer applicable.
Right.
Different grindstone, different scratch.
Leave them by the side of the road. Let's go.
And then forget about it. Tip 4.
Forget about doing it alone.
Can't do it alone.
You cannot do it alone anymore. There's too many things that get added in at the last minute. You need other people's skills, other people's point of view, other people's perspectives. It's just not an alone world anymore. Even though we're independent, we have a lot of freedom to be able to do things on our own. But I can't even do things on my own alone. You could tell just from the last couple of months the amount that we rely on people to help us with the postings and the writing and the programs and the Zoom calls and all the rest of it. You need help. You need help.
Well, I think it ties into forgetting about what other people think of you and perfectionism, because we can step back and go, I can include you in, and maybe we go through some sort of a scenario where we learn together. So we all become the learning as opposed to the doing. Mm-hmm. And that's what these next steps are going to absolutely require. And by including others into the conversation, then we eventually acquire more self-confidence to know that maybe I could lead that conversation. Maybe I could be the one who's ahead of it. And then forget about it. Tip 5.
Forget about being comfortable.
There is no coasting here.
There's no coasting. There is no comfort zone anymore. If you find one, let me know, because I could use a little comfort. The comfort zones have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And you know what? Staying in your comfort zone, I've learned this personally myself with dealing with my Parkinson's. If I give into the comfort, I'm not going to get up out of the chair again. So I need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. I've got to find ways to be able to endure the discomfort in order to be able to achieve and to keep going.
Absolutely.
So it's just not there anymore. So forget about it.
Well, and I think in conclusion, all of this together will tie into massive amounts of learning for everybody. And I think that's there are two things that have been resonating for me over the movement of moving to hybrid, whatever it may be, is number one, this imperfection. Things are flowing as we speak, and also the need for empathy. That is it's so interesting and exciting to me to see the conversation come back to that. It ebbs and flows. We heard Daniel Goleman say that early on, and right after emotional intelligence, it was high up. Let's talk about empathy, yeah, and then but let's get ROI. We got to get stuff done. We can't
get back to business.
Yeah, we got to get back to business. So I think this whole process of what's going on in the unknown space is exciting because of that piece. So that's our tips for today. Forget about doing it alone. Forget about being comfortable. Forget about that nose to the grindstone, and forget about what others think of you, and forget about perfection. Just forget about it. That would be my closing statement.
Start paying attention to what counts.
Yeah, and let us know. Leave a comment here, or go to our website and leave a comment about other topics you may like to hear. We do this every Wednesday. For now, it's 4:00 p.m. Eastern, but always will be a replay on the live stream channels, Facebook and YouTube. So see you next week. Closing comments, Dave?
I would say keep an eye out for our upcoming webinar on the hybrid to reality. I think that's going to be really good. We've been working on that for months now, and I think it's about time, because everybody's starting to step back into that world that is a little bit brand new. How do we make the most out of it? So we're going to be supplying an opportunity for you to be able to discuss that with us.
Great. See you next time.
Forget about it.